Guys, what's up? It's Dark here and welcome back to another video guide. Today we are doing Operation Mechagon, so it's a standard Operation Mechagon guide and a hard mode Mechagon guide in one. And we're going to get you through this dungeon. So it's hard mode Mechagon is a little bit of a step up from the base level of Operation Mechagon, but it's a fantastic addition to the dungeon in regards to its difficulty scaling and making the fights fun and engaging. So how do you go about activating a hard mode Mechagon once you are inside? So the first thing you need to do is defeat the first 3 bosses while the HK8 aerial oppression unit is hovering over the top of them. So once you get inside, open up your minimap, have a look at where the HK8 is flying. That is the boss that you need to defeat first. Once you kill that boss, it flies off to another one. You need to go and kill that one, and so on. There are no rules, however, around clearing out the trash, and it is far easier to kill all the trash on the way to each boss that doesn't have the HK8 already flying over the top of it. So go and kill all the trash to each boss first, then move to the boss that the HK8 is flying over the top of to do that one first. Now, the hard mode bonus that you will get from having the HK8 flying above is that it will periodically drop 3 walkie-talkie X1 robots into the encounter or even the trash while you are dealing with it while it's in that space. Now, these walkie-talkies have an area of effect around them that cause damage. They slow you when you're in that area of effect as well, and they will also leave a static discharge from where they have walked in their wake, which will reduce your movement speed by 50% and cause damage as well. Now, they're immune to damage, but when they reach 0 energy, they explode. They deal damage to everyone within 6 yards of them, so make sure you've got some distance on them. Now, you can have your DKs if you've got them, grip them or mass grip them away. You can also have a druid use entangle or mass entangle on them as well, which is fantastic for dealing with them. If you have none of these options, you just need to avoid them. So that in the first 3 bosses is the addition that you are going to get from having the HK8 above the boss. So on to the actual bosses themselves. Gunker's the one we're going to start off with. He's the slime boss, and he's probably the most difficult one in here with the addition of hard mode. To engage Gunker, you need to defeat all 3 toxic monstrosities around him in his encounter space, which are marked on the map when you get up there on your minimap with little gold dots or yellow dots. So go and kill them, then the boss becomes available. Now you can see there are 3 squirt bots around this boss. This boss is going to be shooting out toxic goop throughout the fight, and the idea is that while standing in a squirt bot sanitizing spray zone, you're immune to this toxic goop. If you get gooped or the bot gets gooped, you need to break people or the bot out ASAP. The squirt bot is going to be moving around and you need to be moving with it. So what you want to do is you want to stick close to one of these moving squirt bots, and there is always one in melee range circling the boss. You can basically just follow this one around. The boss is periodically going to cast a thing called Splatter, which will shoot goop out at a random squirt bot. Now, if you are following that squirt bot, you need to move away from that squirt bot when the goop goes out. As soon as it lands and it traps the bot, you all need to break it out ASAP so that you have the availability of that squirt bot sanitizing spray zone. That's a mouthful. The boss will cast an ability called Coalesce, where he will draw all the toxic puddles that he's been spitting out into him. You need to be in a squirt bot zone to avoid getting gooped by this as well, or in between a squirt boss and the bot. It's just easier to be in a squirt bot though for this. The boss is also going to cast an ability called Toxic Wave, where he will push out all the puddles that he's sucked in. Again, make sure that you are standing in a squirt bot sanitizing spray zone to avoid getting gooped. Basically, the big thing with this boss is to just not stand in the green bad stuff. Stay moving near a squirt bot. If a bot gets gooped, break it out straight away. If one of your players gets gooped, make sure you break them out ASAP. When the boss starts casting Coalesce, make sure you're standing in a boss. When the boss starts cast Toxic Wave, make sure you're in a bot and do lots of damage. I would 100% recommend using heroism on this fight as well. The added mechanic from hard mode with the walkie-talkies makes this really interesting, especially with their slowing zone when you are consistently trying to move around with a squirt bot and not get hit by the green goop. When they land with the walkie-talkies, if you can be grouped up as a group, it can be easier to deal with as they're more clumped up, and you can usually use a mass grip and then roots them in place. If you don't have this option, you just need to continue moving around and in some cases get a little bit of luck in regards to dealing with this one. So So then we're off to the next boss, which is Trixie Tracer and Nano Mega Crash. Now, firstly, these two don't share a health pool, so you want to kill them as close together as possible. When Nano Mega Crash dies first, Trixie gains Super Boost, which increases her haste by 100%. And when Trixie dies first, Mega Crash gains Turbo Boost, which makes his melee attacks deal massive damage to all players. This is obviously not great. Trixie doesn't melee the tank, so as the tank you basically just ignore her, but when you can, try and make sure that the two are on top of each other for as much cleave damage as we can possibly get out. Trixie's going to spam cast Tase. You want to get an interrupt order going on, and you want to interrupt as many Tases as you can. She'll also cast an ability called Mega Tase. This is an 8-second cast. You can't kick it. The player that gets targeted with this ability needs to run and stand in the smoke cloud. Now, the smoke cloud will have been left by the other clown riding around Mega Crash. He'll be in a bike. He'll do a burnout. He'll leave a smoke patch. That's where you need to run when you get targeted with Mega Tase. Mega Crash, when he's off his bike, is movable, so as the tank, make sure that you're picking him up and you're moving him on top of Trixie. He'll cast an ability called Roadkill, which is a charge, just don't be in the bad area. He'll also cast a thing called Bolt Buster, which is a frontal cleave. Make sure you keep him faced away from your group and sidestep or outrange it when possible. He will also periodically get on his bike, and he's kind of like the bird in Freehold. When he charges, it's in a straight line. It's very telegraphed where he is going to go. If you get hit by it on hard mode, every chance you're going to die. You'll be okay on normal Operation Mechagon though. He'll cast Burnout, which leaves the smoke cloud, which you need to hide in for Mega Tase, so just be watching where that is. He'll always do 2 charges across the encounter space before exiting his bike and going back into his Roadkill and Bolt Buster mechanic. Again, the addition of hard mode is the walkie-shockies. In this fight, they're not as big an issue though. There's a lot of encounter space in here. Again, grip them out, roots them, or just move away from them. They're not really a huge problem in this fight. So we're on to the third boss, which is King Gobbermack. This is a one-phase fight, and again, it's pretty simple. The boss is going to consistently summon adds throughout the fight, and at 100 energy, he'll cast a thing called Charge Smash on the tank. This damage is split to everybody that gets hit by it, so have your entire group stacking on the tank. After the smash hits everybody, they will become electrically charged. Your group then needs to move to the 4 coils and the 1 scrap bot. Just by running next to them, the charge will pass from you onto those coils and the scrap bot, and they will help you deal with all the adds that are consistently spawning so you don't get overwhelmed. Your group just continues to nuke down King Gobbermack. The walkie-shockies are there walking around again, but again, they don't really have a large impact on this one as there's enough space to maneuver around with the boss without them sort of causing too many issues for you. So then we're on to the actual HK8 aerial oppression unit itself. Now this is a 2-phase fight, and there's a fair difference from normal to hard mode. Now in phase 1, this is going to be your first indication that you've done hard mode correctly, as you'll be facing a Tank Buster MK2 instead of a Tank Buster MK1. If the MK1 is there, you're done fucked up. Now the Tank Buster will cast a thing called Wreck on the tank, which deals massive damage, and all the subsequent wrecks after that will deal more damage. So make sure you're using your cooldowns and your active mitigation for these abilities. The boss will cast Reinforcement Relay, which summons walkie-shockies into the area. Now the good news is you don't have the added bonus walkie-shockies that you would have had from the HK8 overhead as you are actually fighting it. So you are still only dealing with 3 walkie-shockies, not 6. Now the bad news is that these walkie-shockies on hard mode are linked with a cutting beam. So if you are doing this in normal mode, this will be the first time you will be seeing walkie-shockies, and they're just as I've described them. They walk around with the slow and the damage field on them. When they reach 0 energy, they explode. That's pretty much it. Just avoid them, root them, that's it. In hard mode, however, here they are linked with a cutting beam, and that deals damage to anyone that passes through the link, so they form like a big triangle and walk around. You can take 1 tick if you need to pass through it though. It won't kill you. These will walk around doing all the same things, and they'll eventually self-destruct. Don't be near them. The Tank Buster will be dealing damage to random targets via an ability called Fulminating Zap. This is a dot that gets left on players for 9 seconds. It deals damage, and the HK8 will be moving around, also casting a thing called Cannon Blast. It's a massive blue line of swirly bad shit that goes up the middle of the encounter zone pretty much. Just make sure that you're not standing in it. Gets a little bit tricky sometime when you're trying to avoid the triangle of death, but again, just use your eyeballs. Once the tank buster is dead, phase 2 will begin. Now on the left and right sides of the encounter zone, there will be 2 charging stations. One is going to be active, it's random each time. You have to go to the active one first, obviously. You need to make your way up, dodging some traps in this little kind of electrical maze. Once you get, if you get hit, you get ported to the back. So take your time, just make sure you get up to the top. When you get up to the top, there is an overcharging station. You need to interact with this and hack it to remove its energy. The more people are doing this, the faster you drain the energy. You need to continue moving around the top here and interacting with the overcharge station. As there's little sentries that are padding across it, you can just kind of get up, run all the way around to the other side of it and get a big channel in before you have to move for the sentry that is padding around in the circle again. Once the energy hits 0, the boss goes haywire, making it fall to the ground, and it takes triple damage. Now, this is your Hero Bloodlust CD moment. This lasts 30 seconds, so you just want to go absolutely ham. Now, on hard mode, you only actually have 55 seconds once this phase starts to get all the way up to the top and push the boss into haywire. So you need to be really quick at getting through the maze and interacting with that overcharging station and getting the boss into haywire before that 55 seconds is up and the annihilation ray kills you, everyone. So navigating the maze, hacking the overcharging station becomes very important here on hard mode. I also recommend at 5 energy or even 10 energy, having your group all bar your healer run back down to the boss, just so as soon as it triggers into haywire, you can get your hero off and you can just get max DPS up on the boss to avoid having to do another phase. You can one phase this already on hard mode, so it's obviously going to get easier and easier. If you fail to kill the boss within this haywire window, you need to kill another tank buster and then you need to go to the other side and do it all over again. So then we're on to the next boss, which is Tussle Tonks. Now this is made up of 2 bosses, the Platinum Pummeler and No Mercy for You. These bosses do not share a health pool and do not need to die at the same time. There is also no hard mode mechanic associated to these ones, which makes life easy. So as the tank, you're going to pick up the Platinum Pummeler. There are 4 piston smashers located around the room. You need to drag the pummeler over to one of these piston smashers. Once you move under it, it'll start to activate. There'll be a swirly zone on the ground. You just need to make sure the pummeler is in this so it gets hit by it. You need to get it hit by 3 different hammers around the room before it can be killed, because otherwise it's just taking 99% reduced damage. While you're doing this, the rest of your group is going to be nutting out on No Mercy for You. It'll do a charge called Maximum Thrust, just don't be in front of it. It'll also fixate on players and cast Flame Jets, just don't be in front of it when it's doing this and continue to kill it. It'll also, when it does the charge, it'll crash into the wall, which it'll be stunned for 10 seconds. Really use that uptime as well. As the tank, if you've already removed the armor plating from the pummeler, make sure you're putting it onto No Mercy for cleave damage as well. So then we're running through the tunnel and we are going to Cujo. Now Cujo is the next boss up where there is a hard mode activation mechanic to this one. So when you get to Cujo, on the left side of the room there is going to be some robot waste on the ground. Click on this, send it flying into the fly, and this will activate hard mode once you pull Cujo.
Oh.
Cujo is pretty easy fight to understand. Cubes are going to drop from above onto the ground, and the boss is going to do this ability called Venting Flames. When this goes off, you need to run and line of sight yourself from the boss on the other side of one of the cubes to not get hit for the 6-second duration of his Venting Flames. You can only use 1 cube per line of sight, so 1 cube per Venting Flames channel, and always tank Cujo near a box. Your group is going to have to move away from the boxes. When Cujo does his ability Explosive Leap, he's going to target a random player and jump to them. If he jumps through a box, you screw that box for your next soak, which is very bad. You also need to be aware of the claws above doing an airdrop. The claws above drop boxes. If you get hit in hard mode, it will kill you. If you get hit in normal, you'll be okay. Now in hard mode, you will also have a debuff called Noxious Stench, which will slowly stack on the party, reducing your movement speed by 5% per stack. This caps out at 16 stacks, so you are moving quite slow by this stage. Again, you just want to make sure that you are tanking Cujo near a box, so when Venting Flames starts to happen, you have enough time to move your slow ass to the other side of the box. The last thing you'll need to deal with is Blazing Chomp. It's a fiery magic debuff that gets put on the tank. It deals decent magic damage. It needs to be dispelled, and when it's dispelled, it deals damage to the party. So that is pretty much it for that one, guys. Then we move through inside, we do some more trash, and then we're on to the garden boss. And there's no hard mode for the garden boss either, but this is kind of like the Super Bowl of the don't stand in the bad stuff bosses. He has an energy bar. At 100 energy, he'll cast a thing called Hidden Flame Cannon. This is going to be a rotating Triforce fire beam that splits the room into sections. Just move around with the fire beams, pretty straightforward. He'll also periodically activate Inconspicuous Plants. These will focus player and channel a thing called Blossom Beam. This deals nature damage, just kill them. When they die, they become an oil fountain. When a fire beam crosses them, they turn into a roaring flame, which spawn flame patches around the room. They don't despawn, just don't stand in them. There'll also be a blue swirly circle appearing on the ground. This is the boss's Discombobulator. If you get hit by it, you get disorientated. If you get hit by it as the tank, he will go and melee other people, so don't get hit by it. And the last ability that you deal with is Self-Trimming Hedge. It's a saw blade that will bounce around the room. Again, just don't stand in it. So then we're on to the last boss, King Mechagon. And I'm going to go through this on normal first, and then I'm going to cover off it on hard mode because I think that'll make the most sense. So 2-phase fight. Phase 1, King Mechagon's going to target a random player with Giga Zap. This fires a bullet towards the target. It pierces them. It deals large upfront damage and leaves a dot on them. The aerial unit is the main thing that you'll be fighting in phase 1 here. It'll take off and target a random player with a thing called Cutting Beam. You don't want to get hit by this beam or be under it. It will also cast an ability called Recalibrate. There are 4 plasma balls around the room. These will shift to player locations upon Recalibrate being cast. Just don't be standing in those. That is pretty much the phase 1 crux of normal King Mechagon here. When you have killed the aerial oppression unit, you'll get stunned, and King Mechagon will enter the Omega Buster. Now, this is pretty much a tank and spank style fight. Now, if you get targeted with Giga Zap in phase 2 here, you need to either move off to the side of the encounter space or have people move away from you. You need to decide on that with your group. In phase 2, there's going to be 3 rapid successions of Giga Zap, and there is a large blue line that will pretty much pathway where this ability is going so other people can't get hit. As I said, there will be 3 in a row that will go off of Giga Zap in phase 2, 3 different people. So either be moving off to the side or stand still and have your group move away from people that are targeted with the big blue line. King Mechagon will also detach his arm. It's called Magneto Arm. Just move away from this. It will draw you in with the plasma orbs. It's proximity-based damage. Just make sure that you are running away from this. And that is pretty much it for that fight, guys. It is pretty simple. It's not so simple on hard mode though. So entering the hard mode section of this fight. Now to activate hard mode, you push the little red button before the fight begins. And everything else is similar. Phase 1, he's still going to be doing Giga Zap. It's still going to deal a large amount of upfront damage and leave the dot on someone. The aerial unit, again, is the main thing you're fighting here. It's going to take off, target a random person with Cutting Beam. Don't get hit by this. And it's also going to be doing Recalibrate on the plasma balls. Don't get hit with the plasma balls. Now in phase 1, the addition from hard mode is the Annihilator 5000. Now this has an energy bar that you can see on your boss frames, and it starts at 100 and it slowly ticks down. Now when its energy hits 35, it triggers a thing called Termination Sequence, which is the hard mode Bazinga. Now there are 4 input panels at the back of the room. They will flash one by one with a color when this termination sequence starts. Your group has to remember the order of this termination sequence. Once the 4 colors have flashed, 4 red skulls will flash up, and this is your signal that you can input that color sequence that you just saw. Your group has 5 seconds in total to input the entire color sequence before you all blow up when the Annihilator 5000 reaches 0 energy. So this termination sequence will occur around every 45 seconds. So you're most likely going to see 2 in your first phase and 3 in your second phase pending damage. Obviously this will get quicker and quicker as we get more gear. Your group also needs to be mindful of when they kill the aerial assault unit, it will stun you. So if it stuns you close to 35 energy in a termination sequence, you won't have time to put the sequence in and you will be dead. So you really need to be mindful of when you are pushing that aerial unit down as to where the 35 energy is on the Annihilator 5000. So once you make it through this phase, you're into phase 2, the Omega Buster again. And this is tank and spank again, whilst doing the termination sequence, which certainly makes it more difficult. Again, if you get targeted with Giga Zap, you're either made a decision as a group to move off to the sides or to just stand still and have people move away from you. There are 3 beams in quick succession with Giga Zap again. Just be mindful of that. The Magneto Arm is still in the fight. It's proximity based damage, remember, so just move away from it and avoid getting hit by the plasma balls. That's pretty much it, guys. Now, help around the termination sequences. This is no doubt the hardest part of this fight. What we did was we chose to set up a number order. So at the back of the room, you've got your 4 input panels. On the far left, where you can see on screen now, we went with 1. The next one to the right of it was 2. The next one to the right of that was 3. And the next one, the last one on the far right, was number 4. Each person in the group, the healer, the 3 DPS, had a number 1 to 4. Everybody knew their number and what input station they were going to. When we'd hit 35 energy, the sequence would go off and we would all call out, what the sequence was. For example, 2, 1, 4, 3. Once the red skulls would flash up on Discord, the person would call out 2, 1 done, 4 done, 3 done, and back into the fight you would go. Communication is absolutely essential for getting through this boss. I don't honestly know how you're going to do it without Discord unless you've just got some really cluey people. If you press the button before someone else has gone, you will lock out the sequence and you will all die. So again, communication is really important. Something else that's really important is not moving to the input station too early. If a recalibrate goes off, you can have a plasma ball go right on your recalibration station, which is obviously far from ideal. What we did was I was calling out the phase 1 recalibration sequence, and then when King Mechagon was in the Omega Buster, it was 2 hard camera angles, so one of our DPS did it. I've seen people using in phase 1 the tank and 3 DPS to do the sequence because the healer's rather busy. We went with phase 1 and phase 2 termination sequence with 1 healer and the 3 DPS doing it, but you can obviously do whatever works for your group. So that is it, guys. Hopefully I've covered everything off. If you have any questions whatsoever, please hit me up in the comments below. Otherwise, come find me on Twitch, come say hi in the Discord, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. See you, fam.
The shadows hide.